Ice Age 2 The Meltdown. Timing for this game is going to start when I gain control of Scrat. So I'll just give a little countdown for it. There's 2 cutscenes, I just skipped the first. This second one is just going to show Scrat falling out of the air, and then we get some dialogue between the main characters of Ice Age about how they need to go to this slide so Sid can impress some ladies. So timing's going to start after I skip this and gain control, which will be 3, 2, 1, go. So in Ice Age 2, a majority of what we're going to be doing is platforming around as Scrat, but there also are some mini games thrown in throughout it, and sections where your goal is to find hidden nuts all throughout the map. These are pretty frustrating to find casually, but once you know where they are, it's not RNG, they'll always spawn there. So that makes speedrunning it a little easier. If their spawns was random, it'd be very frustrating. Here you're going to see me do a ground pound into the water. This just lets me start swimming right away. Normally you'd have to hold Y, and it takes like a second to show Scrat diving under the water. But if you do a ground pound into any water, he just goes straight into the swimming animation. Also, you're going to notice me double jumping all throughout this run. That's because there's like 1 frame of Scrat's double jump that pushes him forward. So it is slightly faster for you to double jump everywhere you go in this game. I also really like the sound of the double jump. It just has a nice sound effect to it. Right here, you're going to see me head towards a cliff and do a jump up to grab it. This saves around like 40 seconds, because normally you'd have to walk all the way around, and there's several walls you climb up, and then you can get to this nut. But we do a nice jump there, and we can grab it early. The final 2 nuts are over here. There's one hidden in this ice, and then one right by the exit. In any of these sections where you are collecting golden nuts, right after you collect all them, it opens up this exit. Exits like these will not be active until all the golden nuts are collected. And if it's a section without golden nuts, it will always be active. You just gotta head towards it. Now we're headed towards Diego. Diego's minigame is sort of like a stealth one. Your goal is to collect 14 nuts without getting detected. But Diego has very weird detection. He doesn't really have the greatest eyesight, and we're able to take advantage of that. The way I like to time this minigame is I lay down on the floor once Diego's like fully looked over at Scrat, and then once he moves his head back and forth twice, then you know you can get up. He'll still be staring at Scrat, but Scrat can walk around during it. And at this part, you really want to be careful to not get caught, because if you do get caught by Diego, you lose all the nuts. The fastest I've ever seen this done was a 1:13, and the fastest I've ever done it is a 1:12. I don't know if you could do it faster, but that's the best I've seen. These nuts also have weird hitboxes, like you don't fully need to touch them, you kind of just need to rub against them. So in some cases, I might not even really collide with the nut and it'll still grab it. We try to take advantage of that and not really go too far out of the way for them, but still grab the nut. And then we got the last 2 right here. This shouldn't be too bad. Like, if you get anything more than a 1:05, I'd say that's a pretty good time for that minigame. Here we're introduced to a new mechanic. If you hold the Z button on the remote, Scrat will sniff the air, and you can actually use it to grab 2 nuts here. There is no other areas in the game where you need to use the sniff. It's actually a fairly useless mechanic. The only thing it does after this section is it does let you sniff bushes to get items out of them, but the only thing those items do is fill your power meter. If you look next to Scrat, you'll see he has like 5 bars there. Anytime I hit the left trigger, it'll use one of those, and there's 2 types of attacks it can do. There's a spin attack, which he does if you're grounded and you press it, And then there's an attack he does where he kind of rolls in the air, and then he hits the ground and starts rolling. He does that if you hit L in the air. Generally, the one on the ground is better, but they both have the same effect when you're using it for combat. I tend to save mine for combat because you do only get 5, and the only way to refill them is to go out of your way for these fruit pickups, which tend to just lose more time than it would save. The one area where spinning would be faster is if you're moving through mud. You do have full move speed if you're using a spinning move. So if you ever see me fall into mud, and I have one of those, I probably will end up using it. I try to save all 5 of my spins for this spider fight later in the game. It's the only boss fight this game has, and it tends to help if you still have your special moves for it. But I don't mind using a few to help me get out of sticky situations. So here we have a memorization game, but with this game you don't really need to pay attention. The nut will always be to the left of wherever it starts. So as long as you know where the first bat is, you pretty much know where it is for the entire game. It is somewhat RNG, because you can save a second or two if the bats are always in the same spot. But the amount of time you lose from scrolling from one bat to the other is so minimal that the RNG doesn't really matter here. But optimally, you get 3 bats that start in the center, because you'll always start on the very left, so you could just mash A right at the start. We're through that minigame, got all 3 of the nuts from the bats, so they are going to leave the cave and scare off this rhino dude that was guarding the front up here. You're also going to see earlier I was picking up rocks. That's because these rocks can be chucked at enemies and it will stun them. We use that in this one minigame where you have to round up birds, because it's very annoying to actually punch them. So managing those rocks is pretty important throughout the run. You'll see I kind of went out of my way for them. Right here I just chuck a rock at that turtle. You can walk up and hit him, but it is faster to just throw the rock at him. Now we're headed into the last section of Water Park. We've got a little parkour section, and then we're going to head into the final minigame of this area. This minigame is somewhat frustrating. It's a bowling one, and you'll see it can be kind of a weird game. My main strategy with it is just to try to get to 100 points, because that's the amount you need to beat the game. And then I just bowl gutter balls, because it's only about a second slower to bowl 2 gutter balls than it is to get a strike. And I don't mind losing like 5 or 6 seconds just to ensure I don't have to roll a bunch of strikes. If I was on a Wii, I probably would go for strikes, because the Wii bowling is slightly different. On a Wii, you only need 80 points, and you can actually move the Wiimote to control where the ball goes. So it makes it a little easier to line up strikes. Also, anytime I'm going on one of these walls, I'm mashing Y. The faster you mash it, the faster Scrat will go up. One area the Wii has an advantage is they instantly get the max speed going up these walls, and it's like double the speed you could go on any other console. So it's pretty crazy. Wii is by far the fastest console for this game. So when I'm doing this, I kind of try to line it up and just get the ball to curve into the penguins in the center. But lining up strikes is weird on this version. I've still kind of been trying to adjust and figure out what the best strategy is. If I don't get a strike, I tend to just bowl a gutter ball like that, so I don't lose any time. You also will notice if you press A on the second one, it's like slightly delayed, so you need to push it a bit before where you want to throw the ball. And I try to be very careful on this game, because if you're not careful and you fail penguin bowling, it's a lot of time loss. I have had it happen in runs before, and it's devastating. You lose about 2 minutes. But it seems like I've been bowling a lot of strikes here, so this penguin bowling is actually going fairly well. It's somewhat unrealistic to expect to get all strikes, at least at my level with this game. Maybe if I practiced it, I could get all strikes. And I have not tested the Wii version myself, but I have been told it's somewhat easier to bowl a bunch of strikes on that than it is on this version. But the points are looking good. We should be able to get through this minigame without failing it. I've still got about 5 more rounds. And on the last one, I always bowl 2 gutter balls no matter what, because that's the fastest way to do it. If you bowl 2 strikes, it'll give you a bonus ball, and you'll have to throw a 3rd one, which loses a little bit of time. So I think we just broke the 100-point barrier. Yep, we're at 102. So I'm just going to bowl gutter balls now. And we should be good here. I think this is the last ball. Oh, we got one more. That should be it. I think the max you can get on this is 300. I'm not sure. You'd need to get all strikes for it, and I have never tried to go for that. Now we're on the water slide. This is going to be just one big auto-scroller. Sid is going down the water slide trying to impress the ladies. And throughout the water slide, you're going to notice I get to these like Dance Dance Revolution mini-games. Those award points based on how many times you can perfect it. It doesn't matter for any other notes, it's only your perfect streak. So if you get 1 perfect and then everything else is just good, you're not going to get as much points as if you got a bunch of perfects in a row. And it's the same if you got like 3 perfects, missed 1, and got 3 perfects. It's nowhere near as much as getting all the perfects in a row. I've never been able to perfect the last one because it does get more intense as it goes. The first one's fairly easy, the second one doubles the notes, and then the final one is triple the notes of what the first one was. You also just want to watch your nut counter, because if you have less than 7,000 by the end of the water slide, you do fail it and then have to go through it again, which is very frustrating. But you really shouldn't be getting through here with less than 7,000. Typically, you can end with like 10,000 if you don't get hit by anything and you do good in these dancing games. There is a timing to it. There's like a little metronome in the back. That's what I try to listen to. It goes like doot, 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 doot. That's what I'm using for my timing on that. It tends to help me, but I do still mess up the perfects. Although the nice thing is you don't need to rely on the perfects. As long as you're collecting nuts throughout this area, there's really no need to perfect every single DDR game. So you're going to see a split in the path. We take the bottom path because it's faster. And there's one other section where the path splits, and we're going to go on the right of that path. So here's the second DDR game. You're going to see they slightly up the intensity of it. Nice, I got a perfect combo there. So you'll see I just got plus 1,000 for that. Let's say I had only done like 6 of them. I think it only gives you something like 400 nuts. So just for getting 1 more perfect there, it gave me almost double the points. And that's why getting perfects on that is pretty important. So we should be coming up to the final DDR section. This one is really intense. I'm going to try to perfect this, but I've never done it. Oh, I got a lot of perfects there, actually. That surprised me. For a second, I thought maybe I would get all perfects on that. I've never seen anyone do it. I think I've had someone tell me they've done it, but they missed like 1 of them. So it was like a near perfect. But I don't know if anyone has done that in a run. It's a really hard section. So this is the part I was talking about where it splits. You just take the right there. Going on the left path loses like a second or 2. But this is essentially an auto-scroller, so it's fairly hard to lose time on. Now we're headed into Forest, A new mechanic introduced here is there are these like vines we can swing on. And in this first part, we're going to be looking for 3 golden nuts. One of them is buried, and then the other 2 are going to be... One is like high up in a tree, and we use a spider web to climb up to it. And then the final one is in this mini game where we chuck rocks at monkeys. Now, I know I said, you know, make sure you collect rocks so you have them for sections like that. But any mini game where you're throwing rocks, the rocks are free. It will not take it from your inventory. So you don't have to worry about missing or wasting rocks. It will not take it from your inventory. One thing you want to do on those spider webs is ground pound. If you get the timing right, you'll instantly go up to the top of that tree. It saves maybe 2 or 3 seconds over having to do the 2nd and 3rd bounce. But the timing is a little tight. So now we are headed into the final minigame here. We just read the sign, and then it'll start it. After this, we'll get the last of the golden nuts and be able to move on. These monkeys have huge hitboxes. They're basically squares. It's not actually tied to the monkey. So you might see, I could completely miss the monkey, and as long as I'm somewhat near it, it will still hit. So here I tend to try to go fast rather than be accurate. The hitboxes are huge, so you may miss, but it's... As long as you're like somewhat near the monkey, you're probably not gonna miss. Like that one I just threw probably should have hit the tree, but it still hit the monkey. And I know I've thrown a few that have gone over these monkeys' heads, but it still, for some reason, detects it as hitting the monkey. Okay, there we go. That's that minigame over with. And now we're going to head on to the next section. This will be the area that I had mentioned you need rocks for. There's going to be 5 birds, and we're trying to round them up. It can be pretty frustrating to deal with them, and it can be a little RNG, because depending on the direction the birds run in, you could either be saving a lot of time or losing a lot of time. Because if they run away from you, you will lose time. But there's a way to get it so that all 5 bears are right next to the nest. And you just stun them, pick them up, put it in the nest. Stun it, pick it up, put it in the nest. And you just repeat that pattern. But you do have to be very accurate with your rocks. I've done it once, and it's very fast. It's roughly like 30 seconds faster than on average what I would do. But it is pretty hard. This section you want to be careful, because if you fall on any of those jumps, you're losing a lot of time. You gotta run back around, go through the wall again. It's super frustrating. So now we're headed into bird roundup. I'm just going to talk to the bird real quick, and that will start it. You're also going to see I initiate the conversation from this like snowy hill. It just lets me start it slightly sooner. I'm just hitting Y like right as I approach. And then after the cutscene, you'll see I spawn a little bit further ahead. Now I'm just trying to hit all the birds with the rocks and keep them stunned. I try to grab the last one that I stunned, because these will come off of the stun when you come back, and then you just chuck more rocks at them. But if you grab one that was stunned at the beginning and come back, these could still be in the stun animation, and you'll actually lose time for that. And it looks like I am missing a lot of these. Got that one. So 2 of them ran to the back. What I'm hoping for is that they'll work their way back around to the front here before the end of this minigame. But it is RNG. There's one not too far ahead, so hopefully he either stays there or comes back. Another thing to be careful on is when you're throwing the birds back in, if there's not enough space for them in the nest, they'll fly out. So you really want to make sure that you place it inside of the nest. I try to, if the birds are grouped up in the back, I try to scare them, because it will tend to force one of them to run over here, and then you just walk with the other. But it looks like they weren't close enough. I'm gonna have to search for this last one. He shouldn't be too far back though, hopefully. Yep, right there. Optimally, this takes about 2 minutes. But it could take anywhere from like 2 to 3 minutes, depending on, you know, where the birds are, how good you were about stunning them. And now that we're through there, there is nowhere else you need rocks. I just always grab 25 to be careful. You don't need 25 rocks there. Optimally, you probably could do it with 15. But I just like to be safe than sorry. It's very hard to be super accurate with the rocks. You're gonna see here, I just hug the wall for the side that Scrap's closest to. I do that in all the sliding sections. You'll also see that whenever Scrap takes damage and has the stars above his head, he becomes immune to damage. This is pretty nice, because I tend to just run into rocks right after and not really try to pay too much attention to where I'm going. As long as you know you're not going to die from it, you're good. Now we are going to head up to the bear. I know this guy doesn't really look like a bear, but just trust me, the game refers to him as a bear. He says he's a bear, so he's a bear. And he wants apples, so we're going to bring him 3 apples. The first one is already spawned in, and the second 2 we have to use the rhino to knock the tree and drop them down. When I knock it down, you're going to see I jump forward. This is just to help me position myself closer to the apple. And then I'm just mashing Y here, getting ready to grab it. And then the next apple I do, I'm going to start from the other side of the tree because it falls over there. And this will be the last apple we need to give the bear before he can help us out. There's going to be 5 golden nuts we need. And they're up very high, so the bear is going to help us get to those. And now we can get him his apple. And you'll see too, after this, there will be a little cutscene of the other Ice Age characters. You don't really play as any of them outside of mini-games, but they do kind of follow you all throughout the story. So now you'll see, you use these rocks and get the bear to fart on you to help you up. The timing for when you want to press A on those is the same every time. There's like a very specific amount of power you need. Hopefully that wasn't too low. That was perfect. Sometimes I underestimate these because you can overshoot or undershoot these. It just depends on which one it is. I've learned the timings for them, but it can be a little hard to do consistently. You just need to remember like where it should be. That might have been a little too powerful. Okay, that actually worked. Sometimes if it's too strong, he can't fall down onto it. Hopefully that's good. That might have been too powerful. That last one is really tricky, because you have to be very precise for it. I tend to mess that one up if I mess up any of them. So hopefully that was good. That right there was perfect. So that was actually pretty good to have only missed it once. I think in my PB, I missed that like 2 or 3 times. That last nut can be really tricky, because it's like one specific part of it you need the bear to fart from, and if the power is not right there, it doesn't work. Coming up, you're going to see me do a trick called bird skip. It's just a very nice jump. It skips a little cutscene of a bird chucking you up onto a ledge, and then it skips you walking over to the area I jumped to. It can be a little scary, but I think it's good to go for in runs. This game does not have any known glitches that make it faster, but it does have slight skips. That's one of them. And I think 2 of them are Wii exclusives. I'm not sure. I know for sure one of them is a Wii exclusive. I will explain that though when that one comes up. So I'm going to go for this. Hopefully I get it. And I got it. That jump is really hard. I only recently started implementing it into my runs, but it is something I am always nervous for. I'm very glad I was able to get that, though. Kind of a slow setup, but I like to take my time with it. Here we do a trick called vine skip. There's not much to it. You just jump down, skips the whole platforming section. Normally you'd go up the vines to the left of me, and you'd have to climb all around there. But doing that jump saves about 40 or so seconds, I believe. This minigame coming up is one of the most frustrating minigames in this game. Anyone who's played on the console versions knows the game doesn't tend to hit the areas you want it to. Like, Diego will just hit whatever hole he wants. It's very annoying. So right here we have to hit the possums, and there's going to be skunks and porcupines that pop up, but you don't want to hit those. There I was going for the skunk. I thought it was a possum. Luckily, Diego hit the right side. That's what I mean about it's kind of random where Diego will hit. I wasn't even meaning to go to the right there. I was, like, I was going for the corner. We're almost halfway through this. I've noticed they kind of speed up towards the end of the game. You also want to make sure you don't miss more than twice on the possums, because if you miss more than twice, they'll shoot you with a blow dart, and it'll stun you, and you lose time. This area is one you could lose like a full minute in a run if you're not good. But that was really optimal for the whack-a-mole. Now coming up, we're going to go into the ice river. Our goal here is to get 20 nuts. And you have 50 health. You can get hit 3 times in the water before you die. So we use that to our advantage to get to the nuts faster. You'll see they come from the front, and not all of them are spawned in at the start. So if you take slightly longer paths to get extra nuts, that's not the worst thing. There is like an optimal route to this area. I still am trying to learn it. But I tend to just improvise here. As long as you don't die, you'll be fine. And like I said, it is good to take your time and make sure that you get through here with good health, because whatever your health is exiting this area is your health in Maelstrom. Maelstrom is the name of the giant fish monster that's attacking us. He's actually going to end up eating Scrat at some point, and the level takes place inside of his body. But if you don't manage your health here, you could enter there with 1 hit point if you exit this area with 1. Which is really bad. That area can be a little tricky. There are these green light bulb looking enemies, and they're standing in a few areas you need to make jumps, which, if you're low health, I know for myself, it tends to put pressure on, and then I start rushing, trying to get through it faster, start making mistakes. So I always like to get through here with like at least 20 health. But I do tend to play it more risky in my attempts, but recently I've decided I need to just take it slow. I think before I was being too risky here, and I would tend to take a lot of unnecessary damage. That was very lucky to have grabbed that nut before Maelstrom destroyed it, because the nut would have disappeared. I'm just going to wait for the last one to spawn, and then we should be able to get on out of here. Oh no. Okay. So you'll see there, that's what happens when Scrat dies, and then you have to watch this animation. But there should be a nut right here at the start, so that's not a huge deal. Only about 10 seconds lost. After you get the final nut, you have to do one more platforming section here. And then you just grab the last nut, and you can head into the Maelstrom level. Here you definitely want to be careful because it's always just a straight line, and dying puts you back at the start of that line. But now we are heading into Maelstrom. I don't mind taking damage getting to the last part, but I always make sure that I have at least 3 hits worth of length, Because if you go for the nut there and you take 4 hits and don't make it to it, it's devastating to have to walk back. Now we spawn in at the front of the Maelstrom. We're trying to climb all through him and get out. There will be one short skip here. It saves like 10 seconds. It skips having to climb a wall. And it's just a very nice jump. None of the skips in this game are due to like glitches. All of them are just good movement. And I think that is a cool aspect of the game. I mean, one reason why I do like running this game is that it's a lot of it's just good movement. Like it's not super trick heavy. So you'll see I just did that jump there. It skips having to climb on this like spider web looking wall. And it saves like 10 seconds. Now we are going into the final minigame of Maelstrom. We just have to chuck rocks at these eyeballs. It's the same as the monkey one earlier. It doesn't use rocks from your inventory, so you don't have to worry about that. You just gotta hit 30. They tend to open right after one shuts. And then around when you have like 20 out of 30, it starts to speed up where you'll see like multiple. I just try to go as fast as I can, because missing these will put you behind by an eyeball, and then you're losing like a second or two. Optimally, I think this takes around 40 to 50 seconds. And now that we've done that, Scrat can exit Maelstrom, and we are headed into Mudbog. In Mudbog, you're gonna see mud. Like I mentioned earlier, you can hit L on the remote to use your special meter to swim through it and not get the slow move speed. I only do that if I miss a jump and I get stuck in the mud. So you really shouldn't have to do it, but it's a good thing to know. Because if you don't know that, then you're probably going to be walking through the mud very slow, which will lose a lot more time than if you had just hit L. Here we have to grab 3 rocks and put them in these holes to help boost ourselves to the top. If you go fast, you can get up there right before that drops, but typically you need to have the full animation's worth of length to get to the top. And now we have one more rock to get. It's going to be across this tree. There is a small skip here you can do where you just jump to that platform and skip grabbing the vine. I have not practiced it enough to go for it, because it does lose a lot of time if you miss it, but it can save a second or two. So now we're going to put the final rock in, and we can head to the top here. This will get us to the exit door of this area. If there was a skip in this game, I would think it would be in this area. Like, if you could get up to this door early, there's no nut requirement to go through it. But we really don't know a way we could get up here early. It's just kind of one of the things I've theorized. I've tried to glitch hunt in this game, but it seems surprisingly solid for a children's game. This area right here is egg sorting. Our goal is to get the eggs in the correct colored basket. So you'll see there's always one egg that's kind of the odd one out. In that instance, it was the green egg. We just bring these over to the correct eggs. There's 3 nests, and then once we've sorted all those, we can exit. That log I just crossed can be a little tricky. If you're not careful, you can fall off of it, and then you'll lose time. That's one of the areas I mentioned where you might want to spin if you fall. You also cannot jump in that mud, which makes it very difficult to get out of. Falling off that log is one of the worst things that can happen in a run. Now we've got our last egg here. Once we put it in the nest, it'll teleport us to the final exit door. And then we can move on. So yeah, you're gonna see a short cutscene here. The bird comes, picks up Scrat, and puts him over by the exit. There is one minigame here called Hippo Says. This minigame is fairly lengthy, and it's one I think every runner of this game is trying to find a skip for, but nothing's been found. Like I said earlier, this game is surprisingly solid for a children's game. So we have to talk to the hippo here, and we play a little game of Hippo Says. This is just memorization. Sometimes you get good patterns that are easy to remember, sometimes you get hard ones. This is actually a really good pattern I just got. It's very good when you just have to move the stick one space. So that pattern is amazing that I just got. Yeah, so far this is very easy to remember. It's just a back and forth thing. Now hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. You have to do this 5 times, and they add a new move every time, but the previous ones never change. And it's going to keep that pattern of being a back and forth line. This is very good RNG, because I've had patterns where it's like far left, far right, far left, and you just have to go back and forth. But this is very easy to remember. This is super good RNG. Let's see where this one is. Hopefully it's on the left. Yep. Wow, the game is just handing me a great pattern. This is probably the best RNG I've ever had on this minigame. I've had one too where it was just back and forth between these two in the front. It was like the leftmost and then one to the right of that, leftmost, one to the right of that. Yeah, this RNG is great right now. Okay, so it looks like it was just kind of a zigzag pattern. I have not really been paying attention to this minigame, to be honest, just because the pattern is so simple. Like, sometimes you really have to focus on this game, and then sometimes it hands you very basic patterns. So you should finish this game with some time around 30 seconds. I've never seen it finished with 40 seconds left on the clock. So now we're just going to wait for this hippo. And, oh, you'll see there I fell, so I hit L just to spin back up. Does lose a bit of time. You can do a nice jump where you land on the hippo across the way and then just jump. That does actually save time, but it's a pretty hard jump. I've never been able to get it. I'm not sure why I'm missing this, but hopefully I get this here. Okay, I'm just gonna go over here, because this one, you can do a trick where you just stand here and get picked up. I should have done this after the first time. Hopefully he moves over. Yep, there we go. Okay, now I'm on the hippo. Yeah, that is a very basic thing, but it's definitely something where if you mess it up once, it can just get in your head and you keep making the same mistake. So this little hippo is scared to jump into the river, so we gotta give him a little push and help him go in. And then he can take us to the next section. That right there is called hippo jump. You just try to jump and land on the hippo. Helps you to just go across on the first time that the hippo moves, rather than having to wait again. And now we are going into the spider cave. This section has a platforming section, and then what technically is the game's final boss. I call it the final boss kind of as a joke. It's the only boss, and it comes halfway through. But, I mean, technically speaking, it is the final boss of the game. Your goal is just to throw rocks at her. On the Wii, you're able to chuck rocks faster, so you can do like a 3 cycle. I think on every other console, it's about 4 to 5 rock throws it takes to take her out. So here we have to take out these spiders. They die in 2 hits. So you do 1 ground pound to knock them down, and then 1 to take them out. It's nice if you can get them grouped up and spin on them like this. That's why I was saying I'm trying to save my spins. Unfortunately, I had to use a lot of them back there. But I tend to save them for like moments like that where 4 of them are cornering me and I have really no other option but to spin. It's nice when they're lined up like that and you can get a double kill. But it is kind of random. It just depends on where the spiders were standing when you stomped. So after you take out all the spiders there, you can fight the Spider Queen. You'll see she randomly stands up. She does that every time you kill all the spiders in the room, so I know I said it was random, but it is not random. Now she should stand up again, hopefully. If you're too close for her, she'll attack you before standing. I just like to collect rocks in case I'm low. This is the only other section of the game you need rocks. You can damage her without rocks. It's just kind of risky because then she can hit you. It's better to do the damage from afar. And there's no difference in damage points for rocks versus punches. It's all the same. So there's really no reason to not just use rocks instead of approaching her. So she should either go down from this rock or the next one. It seems to me that it's RNG what like damage actually kills her. Okay, so she's gonna take 5 hits here. Like I said, I've had fights where she takes 4 hits, and I've had fights where she takes 5. I'm not really sure if distance affects it. I haven't tested that, but I do want to look more into it. It also doesn't, like, you'll see she flies backwards on the final rock throw. It doesn't matter what direction she flies in. She'll always be right here after the fight. Now we got the last area of this cave, and we will head into what is technically Sloth Village, although I consider this first part to be a part of Mudbog. The whole area looks like Mudbog. It just is called Sloth Village, and I'm not really sure why it was done that way. Maybe it was to make the Sloth Village level longer. But we are headed here. This is the only section of the game where you get a mount. There's a giant bird we can ride, and we use that to collect 3 of the nuts here. You need the bird to get these 3. There's no way to get them without it. The 4th one, there's a minor skip I do. It saves like 2 to 3 seconds. It's a pretty precise jump, and I will go for it. You can lose time on it, but I'm at the point now where I tend to get it. But hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. And like I mentioned earlier, I am very happy that this game didn't make the nuts RNG, because the devs very easily could have programmed like multiple spots the nuts could be, but they just decided to make it the same every time, which makes speedrunning the game a whole lot better. This is the skip I do. I just jump off the bird, jump onto this right here, and then I grab that. Looks like I didn't have enough forward momentum to do it. Hopefully I get it there. And then you can grab this rock and come down and put it into here to make the water go higher. This frog right here is super annoying. The way that the frog is positioned when you get to this area is so that it more than likely is going to hit you when you're trying to put that rock in there. It's very annoying. Now we're headed into Sloth Village. And like I said, this is technically Sloth Village 1. I don't really see how that's Sloth Village. That to me is a Mudbog area. And we are coming up close to the end of the game. There's about 3 more levels left. There's going to be Sloth Village, Volcano, and then Glacier. Glacier being the final one. Here in the Sloth Village, these people think Sid is like the Fire King, and they're trying to like sacrifice him to the volcano. So we are going to be helping Sid avoid that. Here we have to race the possums in a digging minigame. This one you should not fail. It's the same area every time, and the possum digs slow enough that he really should never beat you.
You must have cheated.
And now they will be giving me the nut, and I can exit this area. This is probably the shortest of the areas where you have to collect nuts, because that minigame is so short and it's the only one. When I first played this casually, I really expected there to be more nuts here. Or at least that one to be a slightly harder game. But as it turns out, it was pretty easy. This next one is going to be Sloth Village. Well, it's technically Sloth 3. I call it Sloth Village 2. And here we're just going to be helping the sloth some more. There will be 4 nuts we need to find. The first one we grab by going through this water here and then climbing up a hill. There's also going to be a totem pole we have to construct. And there is a sloth who's cooking soup we have to help. And a sloth who has these little pet birds we need to round up. So I like to grab this bird first. And these birds you have to be kind of careful with. It's really hard to move them. They don't like to go in the direction you want them to go in. And then after I move that one, I grab this chili and throw it over to this guy. All of those, I don't know if they're like chilies or peppers, but all those like vegetable thingies I throw over at the cook, and then I walk over and pick them up just so they can all trigger together, one after the other. Saves a bit of time. So we're going to get the last of these birds in. These birds are super annoying to get in. If you've ever played Club Penguin, it's kind of like the Puffle Roundup game that's in Club Penguin. And it's really annoying. They don't like to go where you want them to go. And casually, this is a nightmare trying to figure out how to move these guys. Like, there's specific areas you need to stand to get them to go where you want. But it's just super frustrating. So after we get all 3 of those, we can grab this chili. The chilies are not RNG. You'll see there's several spots I can dig. Those other spots that I could dig in have, like, fake chilies that are not alive. So we do not like to grab those. Luckily, it's not RNG, though. And now you're going to see I chuck these disc things into the bottom totem, and it will cause the discs above it to spin. We need to do 1 of the blues, 3 of the reds, and 2 of the greens. This part, there's not much you can do to speed it up other than not miss your throw. It's somewhat tedious. A few of the minigames are kind of tedious. I would say this and Hippo Says are like the most tedious parts of the game. But luckily it's not too long. I have wondered if there would be a way to get on top of the totem. Because if you could get up there before spinning all these around, then there is the possibility you could grab the golden nut off the top of it early, and it would skip this. But I have had no luck finding that. Glitch hunting in this game is a super difficult task. Like, if any of you out there ever tried to do it, I wish you luck, because I have, and I have had not a lot of success with it. So now we can climb up the back here and grab the 3rd nut. And then for the final one, we get it from the chef, but there are 2 chilies up here we grab. There's one right here, and there's one right here. This one you want to dig from this position so that it flies up here and you can grab it. If you dig it from the front, it will throw it off behind us, and then we'd have to walk all the way around this cliff. But as you'll see, I'm going to walk up and hand this guy the chili, and then I'm going to just walk up to these and press Y. This will cause Scrat to instantly give him it. And that is why I was sorting them over here. Helps to speed up the end part of this. And now we can get the final nut and head on out. The next part is Volcano. And in the volcano, our goal is to actually light it on fire. There is a skip here, and I have been told you can do it on GameCube and PS2. It saves 5 seconds. I've gone for it. I've never gotten it. The camera is kind of weird on GameCube, so I think that might be partially why I can't do it, but I've just had no success with the jump. And it's only 5 seconds, so I don't really worry about it, but I'll explain it when I get to it. It's a semi-precise jump you do to skip having to climb through a door. So now we hit the flame, and this will cause Scrat's tail to light on fire. This is a mechanic you only see in Volcano. It can be used to burn spider webs. That's the main purpose of it, but here it's just used to actually get the volcano going. So you're going to see there's several doors we climb through here. We're just trying to get to the top of this hill. You'll also notice the areas you have to climb on kind of blend in. When I played this casually, I had so much trouble finding where to go. So this is the one you can skip. After you climb up that rock wall, you do a jump, and you can jump around a wall to get to this area instead of going through the doors. But it's super hard. Now we have the volcano lit, and we can get the golden nut. Now this is one of the easier parts of Volcano, but I would say Volcano is probably one of the toughest levels in the game, especially Volcano 3. There's a few sections there where you have to get launched, and it's the same mechanics as when the bear farted on you. You just have to watch the meter and hit A when it's in the right spot. But if you're not precise with it and you miss, you're losing a lot of time. This is one area you can soft lock. If you grab a ledge while taking damage, for some reason the game soft locks. I've only seen it once, but it can happen. But hopefully that does not happen. And like I said, I don't think it will. This game doesn't usually soft lock. There is a skip here. I cannot do it because it's a Wii exclusive. The skip involves a precise jump at the end of the first nut to get to the second nut early. Your tail, while it's on fire, can put out spider webs. And there is a spider web that guards the second nut. The problem is your tail is not permanently on fire. And due to the Wii's fast climb speed, you can actually get a really fast cycle where you get to that wall before your tail runs out. But on GameCube, your tail will like always run out. When you exit this area, it'll be out. So from that area, if I had gone right and did a jump around this wall, you can get to that spider web early from there. It's just GameCube's tail doesn't stay on fire long enough. If GameCube had fast climb speed, you could do it, but it'd be very precise and very difficult, and you'd end up losing time probably, because if you got here and the tail was not on fire, you'd have to run back to reignite it. Now we have 2 out of the 4 nuts here. The final nut we grab is going to be right above the exit. We always do that one last because that's just the fastest way to do it. You'll also see I jump into the lava there to skip using the ropes. Saves a bit of time. And now we can head back, light our tail on fire, and get the final nut. Whenever I make the switch to Wii, I do plan to learn how to do the 2-flame. But on every other console, you're forced into doing a 3-flame route. Which is another reason why Wii is a very cool version of the game. That's one of its exclusive skips. And I'm pretty sure Wii is the only console with exclusive skips. So on all those, I was hitting B at the peak of my jump so I could gain more height on the launch. if I wasn't doing that, there was a chance I would have had to do 2 bounces instead of 1. You'll also see every time I did one of those super bounces, I landed right next to the web instead of on top of it. If you do a super bounce onto another web, you get a small bounce from the second web. So I try to land next to the web and then do the jump onto the web. Now we're going into the last area of Volcano. Here's where we save Sid. And this area can be very frustrating. There's one area where you have to put a rock into a hole. And if you're not careful, you could end up chucking the rock into lava. I've done it while I was on good paced runs. It really hurts every time it happens. So I'm gonna be looking out for that. I used to kind of rush it, but nowadays I prefer taking my time placing the rock there. I'd rather lose 5 seconds lining up the rock than like a whole minute because I chucked the rock into lava or something like that. So now we grab this rock. You want to be careful of the flames here. I tend to just hold forward and try to rush it, but if you get hit by them, Scrat will drop the rock. I kind of just go for the fast cycles always. You don't really lose much time getting hit. It's like a second for Scrat to re-pick up the rock. So now we have a nut here. Scrat's gonna dig up, and this is gonna cause the lava to rise so we can get to the next area. We do this one more time to get to the third and final area where we're gonna be freeing Sid. You're gonna see here I make a jump towards the lava. This is just so we can start platforming early. You can wait for everything to rise, but there's not much of a point in doing that. And coming up is one of the weirdest and hardest jumps in the game. This jump is notorious for ruining people's runs. You need to kind of build up speed for it and then do the jump, but it's a really weird jump. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about when I get to it. So here we're going to be using rocks to raise a pillar that we jump off of. And there's 2 rocks we need. One is up there, and the one is in the cave. We need the one in the cave first, just because to get up to that one, we need to have already raised the pillar slightly. If you have spin, you can stun those spiders on the way to the rock. It prevents them from being able to shoot a web at you like they did there. And, I mean, it only saves time if you were gonna lose time from them hitting you, which ideally doesn't happen. But it is something you can save your power-up meter for if you want to. I never do, though. I think really the best area to use it is in the Spider Queen fight. And now we have the hard jump I was mentioning. I always take my time with this jump because of how weird it is. You kind of have to delay the jumps, and you'll see, like, I just barely landed on it there. If you're not careful, you could spend like 4 minutes on that jump. It's... In my casual playthrough, I know for a fact I missed it just over and over. It was so frustrating. So now we have the final part of Volcano, where we're going to be freeing Sid. How this works is there's like little pillars you have to do a ground pound on. There's 4 of them. And we actually do it in reverse. This is faster than doing it from the front, because because of the way you get launched, it works out that this actually saves time. If you did the first nut first, you'd actually have to jump across the lava in the center and walk that whole distance again. So doing Volcano 3 reversed is faster. So that's the third geyser there. It lets you get 2 of them. For this one, you want to be just full power. If you don't give it full power, you won't make it. So just always charge that one fully, because if you're even like slightly under full power, you're gonna fall to your death, which is not good. Here we give this one like no power at all. You're gonna see it puts me right next to where I want to be. And then this one we give a little bit of power, but it's slightly less. And you'll see I actually jumped onto the slide, which is unfortunate. I have to take a death there. This is gonna warp me back to where I launched. Luckily, the game saves your point, like, spawn over here if you miss it. I did actually get a good launch there. I just did not realize it, and I was holding forward. So I jumped onto that slide accidentally. But we're gonna free Sid here.
The flood was starting to come.
And that was not a bad Volcano 3, honestly. Outside of missing that last launch, everything went pretty well there. So now we're in Glacier. This is the final level of the game. This game has a very interesting ending, I'll say that. So interesting, you might not even notice it happens. So now we are going to help Diego out. One thing you should know about Diego is he is scared of water. So, this next level freaks him out a little bit. We're trying to help him get out of this cave, but it's surrounded by water, and he is too scared to swim. So we're gonna break this nut, which is actually gonna help to raise the water. We do this to get to a higher point where there's another nut, and then once we break that nut, it will actually clear the entire cave of water. One skip I've theorized about is, like, if we could potentially get to the second nut here early, would it let us just stomp it and then beat this area? Or would it just not be active? I really don't know how that would work. But I'd like to test that. There are like several skip theories I have, but anytime I've tried to test them, this game just does not want to glitch out. Which, I mean, that's just kind of a testament to the game designers. Like, they made a really solid game. So now we go and talk to Diego. I like to jump off there towards Diego, but it is a little risky. If you miss that, you're losing quite a bit of time. Now we've got another short little climb, and we are going to go into the last section. These will be the last of the golden nuts we collect in this run. There's going to be 3 of them in this section. And then we should be done after that. In this area, there is a bit of swimming, a bit of platforming, and it's generally a pretty cool level. I really like the kind of contrast that Glacier gives you from Volcano. Like, it's kind of like 2 very different themed levels, because one is like a volcano, super hot. This one is a glacier, like super cold. Here I do a jump just to grab that ledge. It skips having to go to the right. Only saves like a second. And at the end of this too, there's like a bird guarding the like ledge you need to get to. And you actually get to put on an egg costume, which is pretty cool. It's the only area of the game where you get to wear a costume. But I thought it was actually a pretty cool mechanic. Like, I think it would have been cool to see it used more. I don't know if that mechanic is repeated in other Ice Age games. If there was like one Ice Age game this one is similar to, it probably would be Scrat's Nutty Adventure. Because that one you play as Scrat. Ice Age 3 is a pretty different game than this one. If you've played it, you know. It's not one where you're like running around collecting nuts as Scrat. And Ice Age 3 is a very cool game. So is this one. I've been really getting into these Ice Age games recently. I'd like to at some point try to run all of them back to back. So now we are headed towards the second of the golden nuts. This one, like, sometimes it confuses me because I will forget that I need to climb up that wall there to access it, and I'll think I, like, missed something. I've only ever done this once. Like, it was something I used to do when I started running this game. But I would just, like, forget where this nut was. And I know in one of my PBs, I spent, like, 2 or 3 minutes searching for it. And I was just like, where is it? And then I remembered, like, oh, yeah, you need to climb that wall. So if you're not careful, you can swim right past the entrance here. It's very easy to do. Let me grab this nut. The final one is just through this door. We do a little ground pound to free a mammoth, and there is a nut inside of the ice that mammoth is hidden in. And then after that, we grab that egg costume, and we are all through. This is a very fun run. I would say if any of you out there have any interest in this game, it's definitely worth a try. It's a very, very fun game, and I think the mini games, like, some of them can be frustrating, but overall, a majority of the mini games are fun for the most part. I won't lie, some of them are annoying, like the hippo one. I really don't like that hippo game. If there was, like, if I had my choice and I could pick, like, one thing for a skip to be discovered, I would pick for that to be skipped. I don't know how we would do it. Like, I guess you would need to find a way to jump in mud, because you can't jump in the mud. But I guess if you could, then you could skip using the hippos to get up there. But we are coming up to the end of the game. When I go through this ice crack, that will be time. We've got only about 10 more seconds left, so you'll see what I meant by the ending of this game is interesting. You just go through this ice crack time, and that is it. That's the end of the game. It's a super anticlimactic ending. It asks you, do you want to save the game before completion? When I played this casually, I got here, and I was just so confused, because I thought there was going to be more. I thought I had more gameplay to do, but, no, that's actually just the ending.
After a terrifying
Then we get
struggle and a race
this
against
short
time,
little cutscene,
something unforeseen
and,
but life-saving happened.
the run is
The glacier
over.
cracked
So
and
I
the
just want to
water in the
say
valley drained
thank you
out.
everyone
not
for
sure
checking
how
out
this
the
happened.
run.
We're not gonna
Thank you
question a
to
good
License-a-thon
In the end, it
for
all worked
giving
out.
me this opportunity
I
to
found
show off
another
this
mammoth.
game.
Diego got
Ice
over
Age
his
2 is
fear
a
of
really
water,
cool run.
and
I'd
even
say if
Sid
any of
got
you
a
out
little
there
scared.
have interest in running this game,
Just a little.
there's a PC version. It's on Xbox, PS2, Wii, GameCube. We have an Ice Age speedrunning Discord. There's a link on speedrun.com. We'd love to help anyone out who wants to learn the route. Also, huge shout outs to Zetris. He has a world record in this game, and was a big help when I was learning this game. I watched his PB, and he's just a cool guy. So, yeah, thank you, and enjoy the rest of License-a-thon. And that is my closing thoughts.